Hello everybody and welcome back to Ncaa Games. I am Michael, and for those of you who are used to my channel, I'm doing something different today. This is my first Ncaa March Madness video, and this is my favorite time of the year. I love college basketball. I love watching it. It's amazing. I love whether it's trying to create a projected bracket or look at others' projected brackets, just love looking at it. And I've seen some people doing this on YouTube, so I wanted to give it a shot. But today, we're going to look at Jerry Palm's projected field as of Monday, 2 Mondays before Selection Sunday. And before we get started, what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of go through some of this, and I'm going to pick the winners based off what the teams are in the matchups, and we'll kind of go from there. But I wanted to kind of go over some of the details as to how the brackets are set up and created, because I've done some studying on this, because you might look at some instances like down here, if you look at Illinois and Arkansas playing in Portland, that's not regional for any of those teams, but there's a reason why that is. And so I kind of want to go over a little bit of that information. So make sure to hit the like button, and if you watch the video and enjoy it, make sure to subscribe, and let's get started. All right, so as I said, we are looking at Jerry Palm's bracket from CBS, and the reason I'm choosing his is because I've seen a lot of people do the ESPN and Joe Lenardi, so I wanted to use something different. I know they kind of differ on some things, but as you can kind of see, just to get started, last four in, you've got Memphis, Wake Forest, Florida, North Carolina, first four out, Michigan, Oregon, VCU, and Indiana. And I'm pretty good. I can agree with that. I think Florida might be a little bit questionable in that spot. I think at this point in time, you could make a case for Michigan being in that spot or Indiana, but both those teams are kind of falling a little bit. Memphis has really made a heck of a turnaround. They're going to have a huge game this upcoming Sunday against Houston. Wake Forest has been impressive. That record might surprise some people being there, but they really did not play a tough non-conference schedule, and the ACC has been so weak this year, so they're really not going to – they can't stumble their foot the rest of the way. So one other thing, too, on CBS for anybody that hasn't is there's a breakdown here where you look at quad 1 wins, quad 2, and so forth. And yeah, then this website called How the Field of 68 is Picked. There's a lot of really good, useful information, but some of the most important information here is selecting the at-large teams. And so there's, like I said, there's a lot to sift through here. And so this is kind of how they seed it. So seeding, that's where I want to get. So there's a lot of these procedures, and the idea, as you can kind of see, building the bracket, there's a lot of information with how the people that are in the room, how they have to go about it. But here's some of the key things. Each of the top 4 teams selected from a conference shall be placed in different regions if they're seated on the first 4 lines. So as an example, last year, Arkansas, who was potentially the number 1 3 seed, got placed in a bracket with the number 1 seeded Baylor. But due to the fact that all the other 3 Big 12 teams, there were 3 Big 12 teams, there are also 3 seeds, they could not be in the same region as Baylor. So that's why Arkansas had to be placed in that region. Teams from the same conference shall not meet prior to the regional final if they play each other 3 or more times. Now, if they play each other twice, they can meet before the regional final. So it's kind of like essentially teams that have only played once, they can't meet in the first game, but they can meet in the second round. Teams that have played twice can't meet in the first or second round, but they can meet in the Sweet 16 and so forth. So it kind of goes that way. It says if possible, rematches of non-conference regular season games should be avoided in the first 4 and the first round. So that comes into if you played somebody, you can play in the second round, but not the first game. Let's see. Any principle can be relaxed if 2 or more teams from the same conference are among the last 4 at-large teams. So when it comes to the last 4 in, that doesn't matter. These ideas are relaxed. And so that's one of the biggest things with building the bracket. And one thing I think that is kind of a misconception is that they always follow the S curve, and that's not the case. It's all about, as you can see, so I'm trying to remember exactly where it is. So if possible, rematches from previous tournament. So they use the net tool. So seed list, so they come up with a true seed, and this is where they actually create who's the number 1 through 68 teams, and they build the bracket from there. And one thing is they try to place teams regionally. So I'm trying to find exactly where this was in here. But it's all about trying to be regional for less travel for the teams. And so now let's actually look at the bracket and see how this unfolded according to Jerry Palm. All right, so for any of you that were looking to potentially have a bracket like this where it's edible, where you can kind of, as you can see, there's drop-down menus and so forth, I just typed in edible or downloadable NCAA tournament bracket, and one of the ones that popped up was this one to be able to download, and you can actually type in, or if you wanted to try to project your own bracket, as I will probably do as we get closer to Selection Sunday, you can do this. So a couple things to note is, like I mentioned before, the reason why these two teams are having to play in Portland is if you look at the number 4 seeds, because it's all about the pods are based off of seeds 1 through 4 in terms of where they're playing. And so essentially what they do is Gonzaga's the overall number 1 seed. So you got to look at your list of 8 regional places for the first couple rounds, and they're going to pick their choice. You got Portland. Auburn wants to go to Greenville. Arizona wants to go to San Diego. Baylor wants to go to Fort Worth. Then they're going to look at the first overall number 2 seed, which based off of this, my guess would be, I'm trying to see if they've tried to, my guess would be, according to Jerry Palm, it's Duke. So then you've got Duke and Greenville. So now Greenville's out. And then Providence wants to go to Buffalo. Kansas wants to go to Fort Worth. So Fort Worth is out. And then Wisconsin wants to go to Milwaukee. So then they go to 3 seed. And they try to keep it on the curve. But sometimes they'll also regionally place teams based on where they want to be. So like Duke might not have actually been the number 1 overall 2 seed. They just want to be in the East region. I should have put on here that this was the East region. And so that's what they try to do. So then like Kansas wants to be in the South. Or the Midwest, for Chicago. Providence is probably the last 2 seed, which is why. Oh no, never mind. That's South. I was getting confused for West real quick. And then Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is probably the last 2 seed, which is why they're thrown out West. And so that's what some of the issues end up happening. So like Baylor is the number 1 seed. They potentially could have a Elite 8 matchup with Duke, where Duke is a much closer game than Baylor is, but because Baylor was the last overall number 1 seed, they didn't get to pick the closest regional location. They had to go with what's left. And so that's how it kind of ends up working. And so when you look at the number 4 seeds, you got Illinois, we got Tennessee, we've got UConn, and we've got Alabama. And so when it comes to those last number 4 seeds, the locations those teams are playing at, those are basically the leftover locations that other teams just are not located centrally to the other teams. And so that's why Illinois and Arkansas are playing in Portland, because my guess would be Illinois is the last 4 seed, which is why they had to play in the only location that's left. Probably same thing, Tennessee probably right before them with Buffalo left. So it's really interesting how the whole system works. But so enough of me talking, and so let's actually look at some of these games. So first off, let's look in the West region, which is going to be, I believe, San Francisco. We got Gonzaga. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Good story on Norfolk State, losing 4 starters, I believe, and still potentially winning their league. Just fantastic. And remember, I'm filming this as of Monday afternoon, so things could change tonight. Obviously, new brackets are going to come out. I'll try to have another one of these out later this week. So for Portland, we also then have Boise State and Notre Dame. I like Boise. Boise State can't score, but man, can they play defense. Notre Dame, hit or miss. I think they just in a bad ACC. I don't know if I trust them. Had a great win against Kentucky, but Kentucky also wasn't what they are now at that point. Now, this to me is a potential upset. South Dakota State, 18-0 in conference, including sweeping Oral Roberts, who returned everybody except O'Banner from last year's team. I like the Jackrabbits in this upset. I don't trust Ohio State. Yes, they beat one of the teams I cheer for, the Illini, last week, but they don't have a great point guard. They're so hit or miss. Played great against Illinois. Completely was terrible against Maryland yesterday. E.J. Liddell's amazing, but outside of him, you just don't know what you're going to get. And Malachi Brannon's really stepping up. But when you get in the NCAA tournament time, freshmen tend to kind of struggle a lot of times. So I'm going to go South Dakota State with the upset. This is another potential upset. I like Toledo. I don't think they're going to win this game, but I think they're going to make it close and make it a lot of fun. But that's a potential one to keep an eye on. This bracket's got a lot of great matchups. Miami and Colorado State. I think Colorado State's too good. They don't have a ton of height, but that big guy they got down low, I forget his name. He's awesome. He's about 6'7", but he plays a lot bigger than his size. Villanova, Princeton. Got to go with Nova. Iowa State, Davidson. This one's tough. Davidson can shoot. Iowa State can play defense. I kind of trust Iowa State in this one. I think Isaiah Brockington has been waiting his chance to really play in the NCAA tournament. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Davidson wins that one, and then Wisconsin. So now if we look at the other games, we got Gonzaga, Boise State. Boise State wouldn't have played anything close to Gonzaga, and they can't score to keep up with Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga wins that one pretty easy. As you can see, I made the mistake. There we go. I think we got Alabama here. South Dakota State, usually when you have teams like this, they don't win 2. Usually it's just they win 1, and then the Cinderella story is kind of up there. Now, Colorado State, Villanova, I like Villanova. I think Villanova with their guards, they're good. Even if they can't hit shots, they're playing defense a lot better this year than last year. Iowa State, Wisconsin, I'm not completely sold on Wisconsin this year. I think they rely way too much on Johnny Davis, and the metrics don't like Wisconsin because they don't win games big. They barely eke out games, but they win. And Iowa State, great resume, but they've struggled. I guess I'm going to go Wisconsin here. And then we got Gonzaga, Alabama, a rematch again of when they played. I think Gonzaga will get the better of them this time. Alabama's way too inconsistent. I would honestly be shocked if Alabama even gets this far, even though I've got them picked in this point. And then now I'm going to take Villanova. I just think Villanova's too good. They've got the leadership. I mean, Wisconsin does have upper-class leadership, but I think that's kind of their ceiling, Sweet 16. And then Gonzaga, I think this is probably what everybody's going to pick. Just Gonzaga's too good this year. I think they're phenomenal. I think last week's game was just a slip-up that St. Mary's is tough going on the road. I think that's a good for them to lose that game. So, having a game lost and losing a couple of games like they did early on compared to everybody talking about them being undefeated last year could be a difference. Now, I will say as we look at this region, the team I cheer for is Baylor. So, I'm trying not to be biased here. Baylor's had a big win against Kansas. I think Colgate could be a tough matchup as a 16 seed. Like, that's going to be one of the best 16 seeds that we've maybe seen because that team can shoot. But Baylor guards the 3 well. They really do. And then Wyoming, Creighton. I think Creighton's going to struggle without Andrew Nembhard. Excuse me. So remember, I'm making all these projections based off where teams are now. I'm not trying to project out. Like when I look at Baylor, I'm not looking at them as LJ Cryer is going to be back. I'm going to look at them as how are they playing right now. And that's the same thing with Creighton. At this point in time, Creighton without Nembhard, we don't know what that's going to look like. So at this point in time, I'm taking Wyoming. Their big man I think he's got the highest usage rate of anybody in the country. He's phenomenal, really good. Iona, Arkansas. This is going to be a tough one for Arkansas. Iona's good. They beat Alabama. I just think that what Muss is doing with this team defensively, they're getting better. That's actually my alma mater, Arkansas. So 3 teams I cheer for: Baylor, Illinois, Arkansas. I'd probably go Baylor more than any of the other ones. Grew up going to games. But I like what Muss is doing there, although Iona, that one would scare me if that happened. I think Iona could shock them. Illinois, Chattanooga. This is another tough one. Just so happens the 3 teams I cheer for right in this top of this region. That would not be fun as a fan of these teams. But Chattanooga's good. I think Illinois having Kofi Cockburn is just going to be tough for teams to handle. Tough for teams to handle that don't necessarily have the size. Texas, SMU. Not a big fan of Texas, but still not a big fan of SMU. Kentucky, Vermont. I think Vermont always fields a good team. I think Kentucky's got too much. Xavier, man, this is a weird one. Both these teams are just kind of in tail slide, but I think Michigan State's overall plays better, and then Duke and Longwood. So now we got Baylor, Wyoming. I think Wyoming will make it close, but ultimately Baylor. Arkansas, Illinois. I think there's something to me about this Illinois team. Even though they've struggled at times, they've been playing teams they're so comfortable with. The way Alonzo Plummer's shooting the ball. Trent Frazier's a beast. Like, he's got to be one of the guys in the country. Even though he's struggled at times, like, to kind of faded, like, he's a guy you want on your team when stuff gets tough. And then the way Grandison can shoot and Kofi Cockburn down low, I just think they're just going to be too much for Arkansas. So Baylor, Illinois. And then Texas, Kentucky. I think Kentucky's too much. I think this Kentucky team is really, really good. So then we have Michigan State, Duke. And I think Duke gets that one pretty easy. Now we got Duke, Kentucky. Actually, let's go up here. Baylor, Illinois. This would be my nightmare. I don't want my 2 teams that I like to face in the Sweet 16. But yeah, I think Illinois. Illinois got too much. I think Baylor not having Chama Chachua, this would really hurt them because they're not going to have enough bodies to throw Kofi Cockburn. So that's the key in this game. Could Baylor limit Cockburn and stay out of foul trouble? And I don't think they'd be able to. Then Kentucky, Duke. I'm going to go Kentucky in this one. I think that overall they've got a better team. They've got more upper-class leadership. Duke hasn't been there before. I guess you could say neither has Kentucky, but Sheboy has. Actually, no, he wasn't. But this a couple years ago with COVID and stuff. And then here, I like Kentucky. I think. Why does Kentucky not show up there? Hold on. Okay. I don't know why Kentucky's not showing up. So in that case, what I was going to say, we'll take Illinois just because Kentucky's not showing up there. But I do think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup. I think the key is both bigs are going to get theirs, is which team can shoot the ball better and play better defense. And I think Illinois, with their guards, can shoot the ball better. I think they've had games where they've struggled, but we know in NCAA tournament time, you get guards that can light it up. I think Alfonso Plummer could have an unreal NCAA tournament. And then Gonzaga, Illinois, I think ultimately Gonzaga, but I think it could be close because Kofi Cockburn, like what we've seen with Drew Timme, is he struggles when he faces physical bigs. That's what Baylor had last year. They threw physicality at him. I mean, even though Mark Vidal was small, like Gonzaga didn't know what hit them. I think Illinois can throw the same kind of physicality with Kofi Cockburn, but I just think Gonzaga offensively is too much because Illinois does not want to run up and down the floor, and that's what Gonzaga is going to make him do. And Illinois' defense is not good enough. Now, on the other side, we got Auburn. And as always, as I'm going through this, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Where do you think I'm wrong? What upsets do you maybe think? Because remember, this is all for fun, kind of speculating. So Auburn is actually going to play, I believe it is, they're in the South, so they're going to play, or Midwest, they're going to play Texas Southern and Bryant. Man, Texas Southern's got to be the best 16 seed, or the 16th seed with the greatest win of all time going into the tournament with the fact that they won at Florida this year. Pretty crazy. TCU Seton Hall. I'm gonna go Seton Hall. TCU struggles to score. Seton Hall's not doing great right now, but I still think they've got more talent than TCU. And then St. Mary's and the 12th seed in the Midwest is Florida and UNC. I'm gonna take Florida in that one, but I'm gonna go with St. Mary's to win the game. Don't trust Florida. Castleton's great, but other than that, Applebee's hit or miss, and I just don't trust the team. Now, UConn, New Mexico State. Houston and North Texas. I think North Texas could pull that one out, but Houston's defense is too good to lose early. So I'm going to go Houston. Northern Iowa could give Purdue some trouble as well, but Purdue ultimately in that one. Marquette and San Francisco. Marquette. Kansas and over Montana State. Now we got Arizona versus Nicholls State or Cleveland State. I think Arizona could put up 150 in that game because the way they score is crazy. Murray State, what a second-round matchup that's going to be. I would not want to be the one seed to play Murray State because that team, not only can they score, they can play defense. That's going to be a fun one. UCLA, BYU. I don't trust BYU like UCLA. Towson and Tennessee. I need to watch Towson because I was looking at their stats the other day. I think Tennessee will probably win it, but Towson might surprise some people if they win their conference. And then we have USC versus Memphis or Wake Forest. I'm going to take Memphis, and that's going to be interesting. Boogie Ellis playing against his former team in Memphis. I'm going to actually take Memphis here. I think the way they're playing without Amani Bates is really impressive. You know what? I skipped this part. We'll come back to it in a second. Texas Tech, Texas State. Texas Tech's defense can be too overwhelming in the first round. So then we got LSU, San Diego State. I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about San Diego State this year. I think LSU is not great, but I think they can get through that first round. You know what? I'm going to change an upset up here. We're going to go North Texas on this one. You know, I think there's a lot of really good teams that could pull off a shocker in this one in terms of a 14 seed or 13 seed, something like that. North Texas, I'd be interested to see if they get to their conference championship game and lose, can they get an at-large bid? I would think North Texas and Murray State, and I would hope that South Dakota State going undefeated in their conference, that they could be a bid stealer as well if they don't win. Because I would love to see Oral Roberts back in the tournament again. So now going up here, we got Auburn, Seton Hall. I think Auburn will win that one pretty easy. St. Mary's, UConn. I'm going to go UConn. North Texas, Purdue. North Texas, I think that's a rematch of last year's, and Purdue gets the better of them this time. Marquette and Kansas, I'm going to go Kansas. Now, this one here, to me, Auburn is such a strange team to try to evaluate because Jabari Smith is unbelievable. although he can't create his own shot. And so Auburn's issue at the end of it, and before people get on to me for that, let me explain what I mean, is Auburn struggles at end-of-game situations because Wendell Green and Katie Johnson really have struggled at times of taking too many shots instead of giving it to the player of the year potentially. And so when I say Jabari Smith can't create his own shot, I say that he's made something like 50 jump shots this year and has dribbled 54 times in those jump shots, some kind of crazy stats. So it shows like he has to have the ball fed to him in his spot to be able to create his shot. Like he can create a shot by going up over people, but he doesn't dribble into that shot. And that's not the type of guy you want on a last play of a game if you got to hit a shot, as we've seen a couple times this year. So then we got Purdue and Kansas. I'm going to take Kansas. I just think I think Purdue can't play defense, and Kansas is so good on offense that if Purdue's having an off shooting night, which neither of these teams can play defense that well, but Purdue's defense is so bad, I just think Kansas ends up getting the win. Then we got Arizona, Murray State. So I'm going to go with Arizona, UCLA, Tennessee. I'm going to trust the UCLA Magic again. Although I do think this one could be really good, but I think Arizona is too good. Texas Tech is going to really shut down Memphis. Then we got Providence and LSU. Then it comes down to Arizona, UCLA. I think Arizona's got the talent. Really impressive job what their coach has done, Tommy Lloyd. And then we have Texas Tech, Providence, which I'm going to go, I haven't watched too much of Providence this year. I just know they kind of got lucky in some of their wins in terms of not necessarily playing with the other team's best player. What they're doing is great. I think Tech's defense is just too strong. The issue for Tech is going to be like when they play Arizona, who's going to score at the end of the game when you need to? Who's the point guard that's going to be able to get their own shot? And they don't have that, which is why Arizona moves on to the Final Four. And then Kansas, UConn. I'm going to go Kansas on this one. I think Kansas, this is not the best Bill Self team, but I think what he's done with this team is really impressive. And with Ucla Byu and some of these guys, I don't know if Kansas will win the Big 12 tournament, but based off the matchups I've seen, I think Kansas is better than these teams. And then here, I think Arizona. Now, granted, we still don't know how good Arizona actually is, but I think, this is not necessarily the final that I wanted to see. But no, this would be great. An all-West national championship would be interesting. And then I'm going to take Gonzaga to win it all. So, yeah, that's my projection based off of this bracket that Jerry Palm just released. And as I said, a couple interesting tidbits here in terms of where teams are being placed. You gotta, when you're looking at seeding, you gotta look at region. And so, like, for example, here, when you're playing at Portland, all these teams have to travel a long way. I'm trying to find an example of this. Like Buffalo, let's see. So San Diego, this is a good example. San Diego, Texas Tech as a 3 seed is going to San Diego, where they could potentially play USC in the second round. That's much more regional for USC, so it looks like a disadvantage to Tech. But the reason is, based off how they seeded it, Tech would have had the options of going to San Diego, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, and Portland, and this is the 4 seed here, and Buffalo. So if you look at all those locations, San Diego is easily the shortest distance from them, I believe, other than maybe Milwaukee, but they have to go up a lot of the country for that. And so that's just one where they just don't have a lot of good options close to them, so that's why they're placed in San Diego. And the committee doesn't try to necessarily, at least from what I've read, look at in terms of, USC would put Tech at a disadvantage, so we're moving USC somewhere else. No, it's based on, they try to place people in regions. And so, like I said, I'd love to hear your comments and what you guys thought about this. Do you agree, disagree? And also, if you have any other knowledge on that I didn't mention, or if you feel like you got to correct me on something with how the bracket's set up, I'd love to hear it. And thank you guys so much. And as always, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date and have a wonderful rest of your day.